it's Denise from Heartside Tarot, and today I wanted to kind of do a short video about the decks that I plan on using this winter. I hope it's a short video. So, the way that I've set up how I work with decks now is I basically have several decks that I plan on using. One is a study deck that I'm going to really focus on and do my daily draws with, do my journaling with, do readings for myself, that kind of thing. That's my study deck. And the other decks that I plan on using during that month are reading decks, where I use those to read for other people. Because I do at least 2 readings a week for other people, strangers, so that I can, these are for free or donation. And so these are ones that I do just mainly so I can practice my reading, that I can try new spreads, new ways of reading without a lot of like pressure. They're just, it's just like keeping my, keeping my practice up, you know? So that's, what I use the reading decks for mainly for doing readings for other people. They're ones that I can just pick up. The imagery's clear. I don't have to spend a lot of time like looking up what something means. I can just read with it. And then I also have at least one oracle deck that I use, that I work with every month to kind of help me. There's so many different oracle decks, and this kind of helps me get in touch more with at least one every month so that I'm more familiar with it. Although a lot of oracle decks that I use, I do still have to look up the meanings in a book. And so that's one of the reasons I want to kind of get more familiar with them. So basically, and this is, oh, and I do apologize if you can hear, the kids are not going to sleep. It is way past their bedtime, and they are driving my husband crazy, and he is upstairs watching them. But it's hard to find a quiet place in this house, and this is just, is what it is, I guess. So this is just kind of a little traveler's notebook insert that I use to keep track of my different decks. And I plan them out. I do plan them out seasonally, but they're not necessarily winter decks. They're just decks that I want to work with this winter. So let's move on. Trying to keep this a little bit shorter. So my study deck this month is the Rosetta Tarot. And now this is, I believe, it's called the Papyrus edition. So, and these are the backs. I absolutely love the backs. I just love looking at them. The color, I don't know if it's showing up, but it's this really deep, like blue. It's just really gorgeous. So, oh goodness. So this deck is just, it's a really pretty deck. It's really vibrant, and it is a Thoth-based deck. And so I love this moon. I just love it. And so it has, all the gorgeous imagery on the Thoth-based system. And it comes, well, I bought with it the book, the guidebook, the Book of Seshet. And this has a lot of good information in here about each card, also a little bit about astrology, which is really not my strong suit. So I'm trying to learn more about it as I go. So this has a lot of good information in there about that. And I've been spending a lot of good time this month with this deck, although it has been a little bit of a crazy month. So sometimes I wonder if a month really is even enough time with a deck, but I found that after a month I feel very connected to a deck. I also tend to want to move on after a month. So some of these decks I will spend a month on and then maybe revisit later, just because I know myself and I want to try out new decks. So a month is a good starting place. So this is one of my reading decks this month. Oops. And this is the Connolly Tarot. And this is a vintage version of the deck that has the marble backs, which I absolutely love. The newer one, I do have a newer copy, and it has like I want to say it's a purple kind of green and gold like knotwork pattern, which is pretty, but I really prefer this. It's really, really gorgeous. And the imagery, although I think it does have a lot of like cherubs and angels and things in here, but I just love the colors in this deck. I love the imagery. It's just very easy to read with, very clear. Although some of the cards they feel a little bit different, like almost as if I could get a different meaning out of them in this deck than I might get from a different deck. I'm trying to think of this is a big example is the devil has become materialism in this deck, which I tend to read the devil card as materialism and also addiction when I'm reading just a regular deck, so this works really well for me. I like the Six of Swords, the idea of crossing over the bridge of sorrows, like, but you're almost at the end and there's the waters, there's water under the bridge type of a thing. So I really like this deck. I feel like it's really easy to read with, and I've done a lot of readings for other people, and it seems to be a really good deck for just any question. So this is another reading deck that I have, and this is the Hanson Roberts Tarot deck, and I love the backs on these too. So this one is fun because it's kind of a smaller size. It really fits really well into my hands, and I love this Three of Cups. And it is just a really beautifully colored, I love the artwork. It's got a very fairy tale quality to it. It's just, you can almost make a story, like almost like you can come up with a fairy tale for like each card, which makes it a really fun deck to read with, because it kind of lends itself to storytelling, I think, in my experience. And the smaller size makes it nice when you're doing a reading and you're going to want to like set out a lot of cards to take a picture. You get a lot of cards to fit in a smaller spot. So that has been really nice this month. I've also done several readings for other people with this, and it seems to read really well. So I've been really pleased with that. The Hanson Roberts and the Connolly decks are both newer to me. I think I got them in November, so I've been kind of playing with those and using those for readings, and it's been really fun. So this is the Oracle deck that I'm using this month. It's the Heart Path Oracle cards, Miraculous Messages of Love by Nadine Gordon Taylor, and I really like this deck. I know it's an interesting deck. Those are the backs of the cards. They just kind of popped up when I was on Amazon once, and I went ahead and ordered them. They have really interesting imagery. Some of them are like a regular, like vertical image, and then you have some that have a horizontal type image. So it's kind of a mix, and there's just a lot of different symbolism and meaning in each image. And the titles, for example, this one, Genesis, the birth of consciousness, your talent shines. I feel like you get a little bit like a starting off place with the title, but for me, for this month, and I've used this in many readings, it's not the only Oracle deck that I've used, but I have used this a majority of the readings I've done. And I always have to look it up in the book because it just explains everything so well, and it has a little color image. It explains it, and it has a little affirmation, which I feel is really helpful with each card. And it's a really great guidebook, and so that has been really interesting and fun to work with. And I have to say, the messages, I usually pull one Oracle card in a reading just as a kind of either a message or advice from your spirit guides type of a card, or as like this is overview of the situation. This is kind of the heart of the matter type of position in a spread, and I feel like it works really well both ways with that deck. And so that is my December decks. I'm going to try to move a little bit faster here. I'm getting into January, and Navigator's Tarot of the Mystic Sea is going to be my study deck. And now I have a lot of history with this deck. I owned it. I used it. I didn't think it was for me, and I passed it on, as well as the guidebook, as well as the 3 novels that came with it. Here are the backs. You got the tree of life. And I kept thinking about this deck. I've only went through, I think I only originally read 1.5 of the novels, but the stories stuck in my head. And I just kept thinking about it. I couldn't stop thinking about it, really. The imagery is just so different. I didn't think it was going to be for me, but I looked to see if it was still available, and I did, I was able to find a copy, and I did purchase the deck again, as well as the guidebook, as well as the novels. So this is one time where I passed on a deck and then kind of regretted it later. It's just it's just so wild imagery. I don't know. I guess because the stories in the novels, I don't know if that's what it was, but this one just really stuck in my head. So I'm going to probably still be using the Connolly deck or the Hanson Roberts deck for a reading deck, but I'm also going to be using in January the Naked Heart Tarot. And this is by, I want to say, Jillian Wild. And I absolutely love her decks. And I have her Oracle deck as well, and I'm going to get that one out later because I'm going to be using that. But this is the 2nd edition of the Naked Heart Tarot, and this is just one of my all-time favorite decks. I love just about everything about this deck. And I love the imagery. It's, even though it's animals, I don't always read animal decks very easily, but this one just feels very intuitive, and I can just pull this out and do a reading, and it's very clear for me, the messages. So I really like working with this deck. And this is one of the decks that I had that I was a favorite of mine, and it kind of got pushed to the side because I had other decks, newer decks that I bought that I wanted to work with. So I am going to make an effort to bring this one out because it is one of my all-time favorite decks. So getting that one back off the shelf. And the same thing with this. This is the Messenger Oracle by Velen. I'm not entirely sure I'm pronouncing that correctly, but I love her artwork. I love this Oracle deck, and I just haven't used it in a really long time. It has a guidebook with some, short little messages for each card, but I feel like because of the titles, I feel like it's pretty intuitive to work with. Like, nurture all you love, embrace the masculine, protect the wild and green. Like, they have, I think you can, by the titles, you can give a very intuitive message for these cards. Plus, they're just absolutely gorgeous. I believe that there might be a new edition out. I'm not 100% sure, but this one is just one I've had for a while and just haven't worked with. I love that. I love this deck, and I love the backs. So this is one I plan on working with in January. And so February. So my February decks, this is one that I've been really wanting to work with for a while. This is the Norse Tarot by Clive Barrett. I finally ordered this from his Etsy shop, and I had it shipped here from England, and so it took a while, but not too long. But with everything going on, I was just hopeful that it would get here okay, and it did, and it's absolutely gorgeous. And I got this is not the box it came in. This is just what I had to put it in here. It came in a little box. So this is, let's see, this is the deck. These are the backs, and I have not had time to work with this, and so I wanted to make this a study deck so that I could spend an entire month with it. I could make sure I read the guidebook. It's not hugely long, but it has a lot of background information and a lot about the Norse mythologies and stuff that I want to make sure I spend time with. And it also comes with this journey book, which is kind of like a journal. So I wanted to fill this out and make sure I had plenty of time. And the artwork is just gorgeous. Absolutely. And it's still in order because I haven't really spent any time with this other than to glance through it and look at the cards, which is why I made sure to schedule some time with it. So this will be February's study deck. I love this chariot. So that is the Norse Tarot. And I can find a place for it. And so the reading deck I'm going to be using, especially for February, is the Retrospective Tarot by Ciro Marchetti. And I love this deck. It's gorgeous. I love the edges. I just love how it's kind of like a pale background, and it has the bright colors, and I think it's just absolutely gorgeous. It doesn't come with the guidebook. It's just basic like Waite Smith imagery, but just done in a really gorgeous way. So it's just really easy to kind of follow along and to read with it. Although I'm just assuming that right now I haven't actually done any readings with this deck, but I have used some of Ciro Marchetti's other decks to do readings, and especially Tarot of Dreams, and those have actually turned out pretty well. So I have very, very high hopes for this. I'm very excited to work with this deck. And I might work with it sooner, but I just have so many decks. I want them to have their own time. So the Oracle deck that I plan on working with in February is the Illuminated Earth Oracle. And this one I've had for a while, and I have never really used I've never really used it for a lot of readings. When I first got it, I pulled some cards for myself. I think I love the backs. I think I even had it as like an altar deck where I would pull a card and set it up on my altar, but I didn't work with it very much, even though I love the imagery. I love the art in this deck, and I really wanted to make sure that I spend some time with this, and so I put it down as my Oracle deck for February. This is an interesting one. So I really do like this deck. I actually did a review on my channel like when I first started out on YouTube on that deck, because it was just so gorgeous. So I have a couple of decks that I'm going to be using kind of off and on throughout all of the winter, and I'm just going to share those briefly. So one deck that I've been working with is the Playing Card Oracles by Ana Cortez. The book is, and I think the illustrations are by C.J. Freeman, if I'm correct. And this is actually the vintage edition that I ordered, and this is just a nice big size. I have like the playing card size, and I just wanted the bigger size. And this is just, I read her book about reading with playing cards, and that's the system that I use. And so I just wanted to make sure I had another copy of the deck, and I decided to get one of the last vintage editions. I'm not sure if this particular edition is still available because it's like the larger size, but it's the same imagery as the smaller one. So that is the playing card oracles. And then I have the Antiquities of Magic oracle, again by Jillian Wild, the creator of the Naked Heart Tarot. I hope I got the name right. Antiquities of Magic. I think that's right. But I love this deck, and the backs are so cute, and it's just, it's a nice small size. It's got the black edges, and the imagery is just like a single image per card. And I am kind of going through, it's kind of a long-term project, but I'm journaling what I feel is my own interpretation for each card, and also reading the guidebook. But I really like, it's just like, bench, ram, mountain, it's very simple, but I used it today in a reading, and I got heart, and it was a relationship reading, and I felt like, it's just like, wow, this deck really gets me. And so I love this, and it's been a really good addition to my readings. Let's see. Everything is kind of piled up today. Okay, so a couple of other decks. I've got the Guardian of Night tarot deck by MJ. Oh gosh, Kulinan. I don't know. I don't even want to try to say that. I'm gonna fail at it so bad. So I do not own the Crow Tarot. This is the first deck I have by this creator, and I backed it on Indiegogo, or got it through there, and I really, really like it. I like it so much. I love the color. It kind of matches my desk. It's kind of like my one of my favorite colors. I love the imagery. Oh, look at that. And it does have a guidebook that I don't have up here, so it does explain like what each of the animals are, as I've come across a couple where I wasn't very familiar with that particular animal. So it's another animal-based deck, but I really like this one, and it does have the titles on them, so I can always draw on my knowledge of what that card means if I get stuck in a reading and I don't want to consult the guidebook. So that one is just really gorgeous, and that's just going to be an off and on throughout the winter type of deck. And let's see. And so another one, an oracle deck, is the Water Crystal Oracle with images by Dr. Masaru Emoto. If you're familiar with his book, The Hidden Messages in Water. And I've had this deck for ages, so I don't know that it's still out there. I think it is. But basically, it just has like an image of a water crystal. And then it has like, it's a healing, crystal, and the word is gratitude. So, like, I think there's different categories. There's healing, wisdom, earth, power. So they're just it's an interesting deck, and I actually put a glass of water on the cards to kind of charge it up. So that's kind of my thing. It might sound silly, but I really liked his book, and so I really like using these cards. And it has just a little bit. They're not really for, I wouldn't say like divination necessarily, but I think you could use them that way. I kind of pull one to see like what area I need to focus on. So it's like it gives me an area of focus, and then I use it with the water. And finally to the last deck that I plan on using, and that is this Scorpio Sea Tarot by Maggie, I think it's Stiefvater, with the book written by Melissa Sinova. I need to look up how these people's names are pronounced, because I totally recognize them. I'm fans of both. They're both popular authors that I like, but I don't I don't necessarily know how to pronounce their name. So this is a really interesting deck. It's the back. Some of the imagery is really different. So there's the Fool. Oh, did I put this one in order? I think I did. And I really like it. So I think the book that she wrote, Maggie Stiefvater wrote, was the Scorpio Races. And I'm not entirely sure that this is like based off of that, but it has a lot of the same like vibe. And so some of these people I think are definitely characters. They seem to be like characters out of that particular novel. And it was an amazing novel. I love all of her books that I've read. I haven't read all of her books, but all the ones I've read by her, I just absolutely loved all of her novels. So this is a really interesting death card. And I don't have time to really go over all of these, but this Sun card is just so interesting. There's just so much. There's just so many cool things about this deck that I want to spend more time with it. But I don't feel like in this guidebook, it has like the full color page of the card, and it has some information. But I don't feel like there's so much information that it would necessarily need to be a study deck. I feel like I could just use it, do some meditations with it, and kind of work with it over time. But I love this deck, so I'm just going to be using it off and on. I think as just a reading deck throughout the winter. So that's been a little bit longer than I meant, but I had so many decks to cover, and if you've stuck with me this long, that's great. Thank you, and I will talk to you later, and hopefully be seeing you again soon. Have a great day. All right, bye.